the dogma is, so I was on the liver study section at the NIH for reviewing grants for many years. And I had come to the field as a molecular biologist. And so I learned a lot of my liver biology sitting on this study section. And they would pound into us newbies that a fatty liver is not necessarily pathological. Right? You can have fat in your liver and it's not necessarily a disease. The problem is that, and when you fast, actually, if you stop eating, that's what happens. That whole process we just mentioned of the fat coming out of the white adipose tissue will actually go to the liver. And if it doesn't go to the brown adipose tissue, it's there that HNF4 takes that fat, converts it into ketone bodies in order to fuel the heart and the brain, etc. So, so we were talking about, so when you fast, you actually increase the amount of fat to your liver, right?
Got it.
And that's an important thing to do. So just because you have extra fat in your liver doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. But what happens is that if you have too much fat, eventually that fatty liver can turn into a fibrosis. So fibrosis is sort of like a thickening of the liver. People are probably familiar with the concept of fibrotic tissue. There's a whole bunch of a protein called fibrin that's made. It makes the cells really stiff. And now instead of having a nice, as you see in the supermarket, if you ever look at liver, a very soft tissue, et cetera, you're going to have a harder tissue with all this fibrin in it.
And so is that sort of like a biophysics? If the liver gets filled with too much fat, things are expanding, they're pressing against each other. Is that just stimulating like fibrous tissue production that then stiffens the organ?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't really know. I don't know. A lot of it is, so you have this, fat every day. If you fast 12 hours, you're going to get some fat in your liver and then you eat and it goes away. So this happens all the time, right? So it's really over that extended period of time when you're having a lot of fat in your diet, and then because the fat needs to go, everything when you eat goes obviously through your trachea, to your stomach, to your intestines. And then there's called the portal vein that goes from the intestines directly to the liver. So before anything you eat goes anywhere else in the body, it goes first to the liver, right? And the liver's checking it out for if it's anything is a xenobiotic or a toxic compound or a drug. And then the liver's going to detoxify it. But also the liver's doing that just to capturing the nutrients so it can make the fuel for the body, right? And so what happens after fibrosis then is you can get into cirrhosis. Then you're having real liver damage. And there's actually researchers at the University of Pittsburgh that showed they had a mouse model of cirrhosis. So they treated it with a bunch of different chemicals and they had cirrhotic liver. And when you have a cirrhotic liver, it's like now the liver can't be making any liver specific proteins that it needs and the animal's going to die. And what they did is they actually reintroduced, because that what happens during the fibrosis and cirrhosis pathway, the levels of HNF4 goes down. This is what the group in Pittsburgh had showed. And then if they reintroduce HNF4, you could actually completely recover the animals and bring them back from the brink of death just by making sure they make enough HNF4 in the liver. That's how important HNF4 is. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. Okay. So let's now talk about, some of the work that you've done with soybean oil, linoleic acid, and the rest. So obviously a lot of people are eating this stuff. We said, production has ramped up since the beginning of the 20th century.